Yeah. Rather than like being cold. Like I enjoy
being warm in a cold situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Or like being inside knowing it is cold outside. Or like going to school and it's cold and then actually a typical one is like you wake up and your parents are like, and you're like, is it a snow day? And they're like, yes, time to shovel the driveway.
Come
Well, some people where I live, they have the house that backs the main road and the front of their house is in the neighborhood. So they don't talk up in front, but what they don't realize is that behind their house, they have to actually drive around or just walk like half a mile around to get behind their house and shove it out the backside of the main road. Which is kind of obnoxious because the main road is like a highway, and it's because it's in the town, and there's a minor sidewalk, even though they don't use it, they will mandate you shovel the back of your house. So even though no one ever uses it, and it's not really a sidewalk, they say you have to get out there and shovel it.
Yeah.
Even though it's not even part of their property, it's really weird.
My mom made hot cocoa after shoveling the driveway, so that was
That's
what I was looking forward
My
to.
dad is a massive snow blower, so it's like, okay.
And the $1 I got for working hard.
Oh, I don't mean massive, I mean like big though.
You're making me think of my dad again. I remember, so he teaches high school at a different school than I attended, so we were always like sort of competing about who was going to get a snow day and who wouldn't. And I remember one time he started banging on my door early in the morning. And he's like, Neil, wake up. You have a snow day. I was like, really? Sick? He's like, no, you're about to miss the bus. He's like, you overslept. So I get up and I'm like scrambling to get all my shit together, right? And then I notice that he's not getting ready. And he's just laying on the couch with like a big blanket over him.
He has a snow day.
He has a snow day. And he calls me and he's like, Neil. I'm like running around. I'm like, what? I come into the living room and he's like, my foot's cold. Will you move my blanket? And he's got his foot poking up out of the blanket. You're a bastard.
That's funny. My dad's good, do it yourself, bye.
My dad's a do-it-yourself while I make fun of you guy. It seems.
But then again, I all roll over to it, I am like do it yourself. That's funny.
Oh.
Anyone get iOS 14 yet? With an iPhone? It's very weird.
Was the update last night?
No, it was like this weekend or last week or something.
Then maybe.
You have Windows now like Android, but on the iPhone.
Oh, then no, mine still looks the same.
Different now. So if you get it, it's different.
I would just before you call.
That's true. Androider.
Mm.
No.
That's true. Android is a lot better than something. I just stuck with iOS because I want to get super compatibility.
Yeah.
Wish I started with Android, but oh well. Love these things.
I'm tempted to switch to an iPhone next phone I get.
Yeah, it's a love-hate thing, so I mean, both are good, both are bad. They're both good and bad.
They're just like weird things. Like I'm not gonna like. How do I say this? I'm not gonna do any programming on my
Right,
phone.
so then you're fine.
Yes.
You're not gonna jailbreak anything or anything, so you're not gonna root anything as a cult Android.
Yeah.
So it's fine.
Well, I guess like I see Android to like Windows and like
Of course, iOS to like
the,
Mac or Linux or something.
yeah.
Exactly.
And I guess to me like Windows is like the quote easier one for me.
Yeah. Well, funny thing, Android actually is Linux essentially. Android is basically Linux kernel.
Chris,
Android
Zach,
kernel is
Vicky,
alongside
Brian,
Linux
Sam.
core.
What's even funnier is that was it the Mac? The Mac operating system.
It's Unix, which is the same base as Linux.
Yeah.
They're based off the same. Well, the first one used to pay a lot to get a Mac. Let's see how it costs. This doesn't usually work so hard. If you hack it, you're technically breaking Apple's policy, so who cares?
Yeah.
At that point, who cares?
If you don't have a warranty, then it's like, oh, well.
Yeah, at that point, it's like, oh well, we're doing it anyway, so you know what to expect.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Beautiful. All right, that is working. Sweet. Let me just pull up a couple links that I will need for the streamers. Cool. All right, let's do it. I think I'm going to hop right into the reading today. This poem is also from Life on Mars, which we've read a couple times before. I will remind you, it is by a poet whose dad worked on the Hubble. And it's kind of about him. And it's also about space and stuff. It's super great. This poem is called My God, It's Full of Stars, which is a reference to 2001, A Space Odyssey as well. And it's in two parts. My God, it's full of stars. Perhaps the great error is believing that we're alone, that the others have come and gone, a momentary blip, when all along space might be chock full of traffic, bursting at the seams with energy we neither feel nor see, flush against us, living, dying, deciding, setting solid feet down on planets everywhere, bowing to the great stars that command pitching stones at whatever are their moons. They live wondering if they are the only ones, knowing only the wish to know, and the great black distance we flicker in. Maybe the dead know, their eyes widening at last, seeing the high beams of a million galaxies flick on at twilight, hearing the engines flare, the horns not letting up, the frenzy of being. I want it to be one notch below bedlam, like a radio without a dial, wide open so everything floods in at once, and sealed tight so nothing escapes. Not even time, which should curl in on itself and loop around like smoke, so that I might now be sitting beside my father as he raises a lit match to the bowl of his pipe for the first time in the winter of 1959. That's part one. Here's part two. When my father worked on the Hubble telescope, he said they operated like surgeons, scrubbed and sheathed in papery green, the room a clean, cold, and bright white. He'd read Larry Niven at home and drink scotch on the rocks, his eyes exhausted and pink. Those were the Reagan years when we lived with our finger on the button and struggled to view our enemies as children. My father spent whole seasons bowing before the oracle eye, hungry for what it would find. His face lit up whenever anyone asked, and his arms would rise as if he were weightless, perfectly at ease in the never-ending night of space. On the ground, we tied postcards to balloons for peace. Prince Charles married Lady Di. Rock Hudson died. We learned new words for things. The decade changed. The first few pictures came back blurred, and I felt ashamed for all the cheerful engineers, my father and his tribe. The second time, the optics jibed. We saw to the edge of all there is, so brutal and alive, it seemed to comprehend us back. So, I love this poem, right? And I love how this poem speaks directly to an image. And today that's where I want to start from. Today, we're going to be doing something similar to the description exercises that we've done before, but we're going to come at the problem of description from a slightly different angle in an effort to challenge ourselves. And today we're going to borrow a principle that I learned from my art classes, which I think applies really well to writing, and that we sometimes forget about in writing. And what I mean is, in writing, I think sometimes we fall into this trap where we believe that everything we write needs to be like expressive and that it needs to have some kind of specific outcome or goal. Like every time you sit down to the page, you're like, ah, this sucks. It's really going to suck. Like we put a certain kind of weird pressure on writing sometimes. And maybe this is because writing is so linear. Maybe it's because it has something to do with the way society views language as a medium or the way we view writers. I don't know. But I do know that it's the wrong way to think about writing because it completely neglects the notion of practice. So now, as I talk, do me a favor. Please start making a list down the margins of your notebook. Number each line from 1 to 50. And then do that 3 times so that you have 3 lists to 50.
Wait, can you say that again? Sorry.
Number each of your lines from 1 to 50, and then make 3 lists that go from 1 to 50. So what I mean by this principle of practice is when you go to art school, they don't, like when you go to an art class, no one expects you to like express your truest self onto the page, right? Or complete your magnum opus. No, when you go to art school, they make you draw eggs. They make you draw crumpled up pieces of paper, right? They test your patience. They test your technical skill. And there is no desired outcome other than the act of making itself. So, some of you might not find today fun. Some of you might generate an encounter with what I like to call the inner censor, the voice that tells you that you suck and all your ideas need to be great right now. And then we'll never be happy even if they were. Some of you might love this exercise. I'm really not sure. I find that when I do this kind of thing for practice, sometimes it's great and sometimes I hate it. So it could go either way. But what I've done is I've chosen a few different still images. And I'm going to put them on the screen. And I'm going to put the links in the chat in a moment. And I'll ask you to just like full screen the image for the time that we do. And in our notebooks, we're going to describe these images. Sort of like the way we described the apple before. But now the image is being provided to us. And but the list means that we're not just going to go with like a blank free page and like describe until our heart's content. We're going to describe the image 50 times. Which means that each time we have to try to see the image as a whole, the sum of its parts again. And we can't zero in on details and just like go off and build it brick by brick like we've done before. So our moves need to stay broad and summative. This exercise asks you then to stay with the whole image again and again and try to find a new way to describe it. So we are going to describe and re-describe these images also for what is hopefully just like a little bit too long, right? 50 is a lot. In an attempt to stretch and maybe even strain our descriptive capabilities. It reminds me of the Ralph Waldo Emerson quote, which is one of my faves, which is that a mind once stretched never returns to its original dimensions. Which is why I think it behooves us to frustrate ourselves sometimes in a controlled setting. So I've tried to pick images that can be seen in more than one way and that are ready to be recast by metaphor so that over time you might find new ways of seeing and describing them. And so what you're going to do when I set the timer is you are going to describe what you see. And you are going to describe what you see 50 different small times. This method of 50 different small descriptions hopefully prevents you from creating a narrative or from getting nice and wordy or locked onto a single detail. You might find yourself reaching for metaphors that don't quite make complete sense. I mean, you've got a list of 50, so you might as well, right? You also might find yourself utilizing language that at first feels really strange. These are all totally fine. And there's a good chance you won't actually get through all 50 before the time runs out. And that's just the nature of the game. I made a large list so that we wouldn't hit the end and then wonder what to do. Okay, let's give it a shot. Are there any questions currently?
What we see, it's everything whenever we see right now. What do you mean what we see? It's everything we see currently, right?
No, I'm about to throw an image on the board and that's what we're gonna do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I guess we're gonna do this for 3 images because we made 3 lists of 50.
That's correct.
Got it.
Throwing the image down in the chat right now. The first one is in honor of Tracy K. Smith and her father. I need my glasses. Oh. All right, I'm setting the timer.
But how many words for each would you say?
I would say you are limited mostly by the width of your page,
Okay.
and that is fine. Bless you. About a minute left. All right, wrap up. Okay, so I have a question for you before we do the second one. I just want to go around the room and tell me how many did you get done? Because I'm just curious as I build out this lesson. Alex.
16.
Okay, Emily.
15.
10.
23.
Okay, this is what I was thinking. I was like, as I started doing this, and I also want to know in the chat, people in the stream, how many did you get? As I started, I got 22, and I was like, as I was going down, I was like, I'm pretty sure that I didn't need to do 50. Like, I'm pretty sure you can't do 5 a minute for 10 minutes. Okay. Let's jump to the second one. Yes, the answers are about the same for people in the stream. Thank you. So what I hope in that 10 minutes was that this image of space, which was taken with the assistance of Tracy Smith's father, that at least once this image started taking on different shapes for you, and that you started to see the great connections that exist between similar bodies on different scales. Like me, when I look at this image for long enough, I start to see like channels and structures, and it's almost like it's a net or a sponge. And for the people in the room, I get really locked on to this shape right here, this kind of thing, sort of, what's the word I want? The parallelogram that's going on right here. And then how it seems to be mirrored just a little bit in the structure inside of it. And it sort of looks like, I start seeing like a weird channel, right? These shapes start emerging for me if I stare at this image for long enough. And I'm kind of hoping that we can get our mind to do those kinds of contortions. And the second one that we're going to do today is a little bit more abstract. Let me put it up in the chat. There you guys go. I'll put it up for myself. And finally for y'all. Boom. This might help somebody if you guys are stuck. I'm just noticing right now that I've started every single one with "it is blank." It is this. It is this. It is this. It is this, and it's keeping me on that sort of high level.
second picture.
That's correct. About a minute and a half left. Okay. Say what? This one's tiring, yeah. Okay. So I have one more. This one is a little bit less abstract, a little more intense and narrative. So we'll see what we make of it. Let me drop it in the chat. Put it here for myself. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. About 2 minutes left. Thirty seconds. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. I really wanted to talk about this one, but we're pretty much at time. So I'm going to have to let you go, and we will talk about this more hopefully on Wednesday. You guys can get out of here. Thank you very much.